sure it's started.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. And this is our morning show starting on the hour, and I'm looking to get signal reports from you to see whether conditions are worthwhile at this time. We might start earlier next week because Four Seasons said it was pretty much not hearable by about past, so that's no good. That's when the weather is. So what we'll look to do is get some reports from you, more from you across the South Pacific, and see what's going to happen, whether it's worthwhile to move it forward. I think it will be, because the sun is certainly moving rapidly to the south, and that's affecting our propagation conditions. Anyway, we have quite a few people have arrived, of course, in the Opua area and Marsden area yesterday, so it's pretty busy up there. And welcome back to New Zealand, or welcome to New Zealand for all you new ones who might be listening on streaming. Okay, we have the few reports. The Lark took off, and they are a couple of 100 miles from Bundaberg with 15 knots of southeast with a 1 metre swell. And Rausa are heading towards New Caledonia, a couple of 100 miles to go, I think, 280 to go, and that's at 21 and 170 they are now, and they've got 15 from the east. It sounded pretty sporty leaving Fiji yesterday. We had a report from Revilo, and they left in about 25 knots of trade conditions, but they'll probably have enjoyed that to move them along fairly rapidly. Nessatroy reporting the wind is about 15 knots from the east down there in the Kundaba area. He's at Ono at the moment. So things are looking relatively good, certainly not as bad as they have been up in the Fiji area. A bit more congestion up towards Torres area, Torres to Solomons. It was looking really beautiful for a while there, and I'm sure the boats that were wanting to go through have made their break. All right, I'm just going to do a pause. I wouldn't mind somebody giving a call to the boat that is going south, back of beyond, what do they call themselves, east of the Lizard. If somebody could give a call to them, that would be good. Otherwise, I'm just going to do a pause now to see if there's anything anybody wants. Yeah, hello, Ron Pilgrim. Go ahead. Yeah, you're very light at the moment. Could you just let them know, well, give a call, but then I'll get it from you later when conditions pick up a bit. If you could give a call and see if you can pick them up, Ron, over. Boy, I can't even hear him. Oh, this is Andrew. Andrew, have they finished?
Yeah, they have the position you want.
Yeah, Ron, I've got one or two words from you. I got the 17445 East and I got 32, but that was it because you're coming right in and out with me. It's really strange. Andrew, did you happen to write it down?
Yeah, I copied them. It's 3229 17245 East. 174 came to 172 correct.
Yeah, got that. All right, and the rest of it?
152 decimal 6 knots to no wind, no.
No wind. All right, well, they've still done pretty well from yesterday then. 3229 east, so south, and 17245 east, and 6.6. Boy, the east of the Lizard is slowing down with that no wind, but pretty good speed under engine. I presume they've got plenty of fuel, knowing it's a Dashu boat. All right. Very good signal from you. Interesting, Ron, your radio this morning, well, it's not radio, it's conditions. 1 minute I can hear it, and the next minute it's absolutely gone. So I'm wondering what we're going to do with the weather, but we'll start the weather at 1:15 anyway and hope for the best. Thanks for that, Andrew. Bit of news. Let's go on to a bit of news and see if the conditions settle down. The World Series, the Dodgers 4, Red Sox 8.
Yeah.
It's hard. Well, nobody out there is going to call them. You'll probably be the only one in the South Pacific that can remember them as the Brooklyn Dodgers. They are the LA Dodgers now, so I'm going to call them the LA Dodgers.
Disgusting.
All right. Disgusting. All right. Theresa May seems to be surviving. She had a really big meeting with her rather fractious party. And the supporters are definitely seeming to outnumber the rest of them at the moment. There's still the problem of Ireland and the border as to what's going to happen there. They think there's going to be a resurgence of getting stuff over the border because of the fact that it will be things like fuel and washing powder and everything are going to be cheaper on one side than the other. So they're going to be able to ship stuff into the northern part, and then from there it will go presumably into the UK. Anyway, give them something to do. Somebody did, in fact, win the $1.6 billion last night. They were in South Carolina. They could probably buy South Carolina for $1.6 billion, wouldn't they? That's a lot of money. Anyway, that was won last night, so that will settle everybody down from lottery fever up there. Oh, you will remember a few weeks ago I told you that Roundup had lost a case in California. A school guy who was doing the fields had got a very rare form of cancer, and he took a case to court to say that it was Monsanto's Roundup that had caused his problem, and he won the case. In fact, he won $289 million. Although he's almost dead, so he's probably not going to be able to spend that. So anyway, obviously Roundup, Monsanto appealed, and they lost the appeal, but the amount was reduced to $39 million. So at least that was a little bit in their favour, but they have not caused a change in the actual case result itself. So that's going to lead to a lot of other lawsuits around the world, I would think. Yeah. All right, an absolute mayhem in Rome on an escalator. 20 people got injured. All of a sudden, it went berserk and very, very fast, and everybody ended up in a great heap at the bottom. You can imagine that. It was an escalator going down into a metro station. It sped up. Mind you, we hear now that there was a lot of Russian and other soccer players on it, jumping up and down and causing mayhem and having fun. Anyway, they all ended up in a pile on top of each other at the bottom, and 20 people have got injuries as a result. Now, here's something that you absolutely needed to know. Horses cannot see orange. Now, why is that? Well, they have only 2 types of cones in their eyes, whereas we have 3. So they can see blues and yellows, but cannot tell the difference between reds and greens. So that is actually a problem, because if you will recall, if you've ever been to race courses and other things like competitions where horses jump over stuff, they usually have the barrier as red and white or orange and white or whatever. But that means that is indistinguishable from the grass and hedges that are around it. So not very useful as a safety precaution for the horse. So now they've worked all that out. God knows how they did that. But anyway, maybe they had a Mr. Ed or something. So they have determined that anything that is meant to be a barrier for a horse should be yellow or blue. All right, there has been another computer hack, a big hack. Cathay Pacific has warned 9.4 million passengers in their records that all of the data that they've got stored, passport numbers, date of birth, addresses, email addresses, etc., they're all now in somebody else's hands. So, you really do have to be open to the fact that once your data is in these places, it's open to anybody. And because of this, and I haven't actually read it well enough yet to be able to explain it to you, but Netherlands scientists are working on building an unhackable quantum internet. It's related to encryption keys, and needless to say, China is well ahead on doing all of this, but it's from a nuclear point of view, it's really, really interesting. But the only problem is it's very complicated, and I have yet to be able to understand it well enough to be able to explain it to you. Anyway, it sounds like there is a lot of static up there with you. I've got a report here on streaming from Kendavo that you're getting a lot of QRM from Asia. I'm just going to pause and just check another couple of frequencies. Stand by. Well, I've tried 8779 and 8297, and unless anybody can tell me that it's way better there, I think I will just stick with it here. Can anybody report? Let's just look at 8779. If anybody wants us to move before David starts the weather, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just stick with 8752. And I wouldn't mind some reports, folks, to see whether we should move forward next week. Four Seasons said it was pretty much, you couldn't hear much at all at past. And so what we could do is move the weather start until 7 o'clock, right back to 7 o'clock or whatever it is at your end. It's 8 o'clock here. Anyway, 1900 UTC, and I would start 15 minutes earlier. So if you wouldn't mind just shooting us an email, and we'll look at what we should be doing. It's always a bit difficult at this time of year because it seems to vary considerably from Tonga through to New Caledonia and the people that are passage making going across to Australia, which we will cover shortly. So is there any comments at this point? 87, sorry, this one here, 8752, did you say it's okay or not okay, Ron?
It is okay at the moment, but that's the copy now, over.
Oh, I've got very good copy on you now, so I think what we'll do then, thank you for that, is just stick with the devil you know, and we will have just wait for reports later to see what it's like when David is midway through the weather. All right, I'm going to pass the microphone so he can do it before it gets too bad.
Okay, we'll get moving on this. And yesterday, you'll remember, I hope, that we covered the 500 millibar report. So we're going to move from that and see how today's synoptic analysis shakes out. Our big high is starting to drift to the east now. Finally, it's moving off. The western side, becoming now a narrow ridge, is just over the top of the North Island. We've got a lot of strato Q here over Gulf Harbor Radio. It's a real sign of anticyclones, and boy, it's the end of this beauty, I'm afraid to say. Anyhow, a low sits over the South Island, and it's pushing two cold fronts out. They're funny looking, really, if you're getting the reports. One goes east, the other goes west, sort of like outstretched arms, if you will. Now, the western frontal band ends in a low, a depression, just to the east of Brisbane, while a second weak low is developing in the mid-Tasman near about 30 and 165 east. So just to the north of the first frontal band is where that second depression is developing. Now by Saturday, what's Saturday, the 27th, this low is going to sit just to the west of the North Island, roughly, I'll make a stab at 38 and 170 east. And our high is gone now. It leaves the country, sitting well east with a very, very weak ridge extending west to the dateline. It gets that far. Now, the cruising routes show very little pressure gradient. Thus, the wind direction is really going to be a function of your geographic position. Now, winds Friday at 20 south. I don't know why I picked 20 south, because if you left, you'd be well past that. But anyhow, easterlies there, about 15, 17 knots. But at 25 south, about 10 to 15. So you can see the drop in wind speed. Definitely see the drop. Now, Saturday, we really wave goodbye to the high as the winds shift northeasterly with an approaching trough. Now, the band affects New Zealand and runs northward from there. By Sunday, the axis looks like it runs up 178 east, 178 east, with north-northwest winds on the western side of that axis. Now, Monday brings westerly quadrant winds as the low center punches New Zealand. So the winds are going to be fairly fresh to strong on the approaches to New Zealand then. Westerlies probably getting up to 25 to 30 knots. Now, Tuesday and maybe into Wednesday, southwest winds will prevail on the cruising route. And this is 30 October to the 31st, I believe. And then southerlies take over. Actually, southerlies start happening later on Wednesday as the new high enters the Tasman. So far as the next window is concerned, you would have to arrive in New Zealand by 5 November. I think that's a Monday, before the next cold front hits New Zealand, with west-northwest winds preceding and southwest winds following that. So that would make your departure around the 31st, Wednesday the 31st. So what I'm saying is, if you didn't leave on this particular window and you're looking for the next one, that maybe is the next one. Not great looking, I can tell you, not great looking at all. But let's wait and see how the atmosphere responds during the next week, and we'll see if that might be a good time to leave. Now, up in the tropics, much the same as yesterday, really. The Solomon's Trough still open for business, plying its trade all the way to Vanuatu. Then we get a bit of a break, and the continuation then of the trough goes to just north of Fiji, then northern Tonga, and in the process it picks up Wallis and Futuna. So it's fairly wide. Now, those of you that are currently on this rather poor present window, if you will, need to consider putting in some westing, if at all possible, although this may actually be a bit difficult looking at how the winds are shaping up. So over to Tonga now, where the trough axis lies still over Nui Tupatapu, or New Potatoes, as it's affectionately called. I've never seen any potatoes there. But anyway, heavy rain is definitely occurring up there in Nui Tupatapu. And this trough is quite wide in area. So clouds and showers are affecting Vavau as well. Lesser frequent showers, I think, for the Hapais and Tongatapu. Now tomorrow, Shane is going to be mostly cloudy with scattered showers. Those picking up satellite imagery, particularly the loops, can see this. Basically today, it's quite interesting if you do that. The winds now, I see southeast in the 20 knot range, dropping tomorrow, Friday, to around 15 knots. And watch out for the weekend. I am seeing cyclonic rotation over the group, over the kingdom, if you will. So we'll see what happens. It's quite possible that we can get a very tiny little disturbance, cyclonic disturbance right there. Over to Fiji, where Fiji Met still continues with the heavy rain alert for most of the group. I won't read off all the areas, but it's virtually everywhere. While the trough axis, as I said, is still a little bit to the north, but being wide and the fact that it's slowly drifting south, very, very slowly, it's starting to affect more and more of Fiji all over again. Deja vu all over again. Expect continued periods of rain and thunderstorms, not in a continuous nature, I don't think, but they'll start to become a little bit more frequent. And as we said yesterday, these conditions will probably go right through the weekend as well. Now, Fiji Met still continues with the strong wind warnings as well, east to southeast, 20 to 25 today and tomorrow. Rough seas and open waters, folks, and add a pretty good size southerly swell rolling in. And finally, the usual warning of poor visibility during some of these downpours. It always amazes us how many yachties forget about the visibility issue. They hear the reports about the amount of wind, the direction of the wind, and they think they'll be able to do it with no problem. But tell you what, you get that big lump in your tummy when that visibility closes down, just as you're entering a tricky area. So it's happened to us. So be very, very careful when I talk about poor visibility. Now for Vanuatu, our trough is affecting the northern area at the moment. The loop shows quite heavy cloud up there, then breaks, and then more cloud behind that. So another like a light switch on off type of thing. And it's going to be like that through the day as cloud is moving west to east, more or less west to east. Winds today, east-southeast in the 20 knot range, a little bit lighter for the Banks and the Torres, and maybe even Malapua, a little bit lighter there. Tomorrow, southeast winds in the 15 knot range for the group as a mean wind. And finally, to New Caledonia, the loop shows scattered cloud, but mostly blue sky. Looks like a very nice morning for our area. Now, the frontal band in the Tasman reaches to the north, but not quite gotten to the French Isles as yet. So it's still hovering just to the south of New Caledonia, leaving New Cal with pretty good weather. Now, winds for our lagoon area are just north of east, I would say, 15 to 20. Friday, I expect easterlies, 10 to 15. And I think they'll tend to north of east a little bit later in the day. And it looks like very light northeasterly winds on Saturday, but actually northwest winds north of Noumea. So that's an area where we could see possible convective activity due to the winds clashing. Directional convergence is what we call that. And that's it for me. Those of you that are going to Australia, a lot of you have already arrived. Some have just left. Some are halfway there. Not a bad trip. Once you get to the coast, depending upon your arrival, there is activity along the coast of the Queensland coast of Australia a few days from now. So as you get a little bit closer, just give us a call, and we'll give you a fill on what it's looking like at that time. But for the journey, for most of the journey, the winds are fairly light and consistent, so it should be a pretty good trip. And the guessing game will be when you get there. That's it for me. Any questions or comments come now, and here is the chief.
And the first message goes out to Revilo. Craig, we've got your Iridium message. The only thing that's missing is your position. Got great, well, this is leaving yesterday, and he's 24 hours out, and he's been doing quite well, 7 knots, so we'll sort of work out where you are, but the wind has moderated a bit, 18 knots from the southeast now, 90% cloud cover, and you're got a course of 206 and speed of 7 knots, in case mum and dad are listening there. Seas are 1.5 metres, so that's not too bad, is it? So we'll presumably go with that one. And Revilo have, I'm just looking at Browser there. Oh yeah, I've given you that one anyway. It's just come through my other system. Gosh, what a strange, weird things going on here. Alright, so hopefully, Al, you heard that, and your boat needs, Erie 2 knows how to get there, so that's not too bad. Is there anybody with any questions? Please call. No, just reading Serrani, it was up to 40 knots at El Metro yesterday. That would have been quite spectacular for the windsurf people, wouldn't it? Anyway, it's a much nicer day for them, leaving today 10 to 15 from the east-northeast. All right, folks, it sounds like we got through this all right. Well, we don't really know because you're not telling us anything. But hopefully you heard the weather, and we'll see what people have to say about a possible move earlier. But it seems to be not so bad here. Certainly your signal came up really, really well, Ron, so it makes me a bit nervous about moving it forward. But anyway, this is Gulf Harbour Radio. The frequency is now all yours, and we will be back tomorrow with the full roundup to last you through the weekend. Cheers, everybody. There was somebody there. Could you make sure you're on high power and speak up? Well, I got to do your copy, but I'd have to say that I will need a relay. Could anybody tell me who that boat is? Relay, go ahead. Hold everything. Well, I'm afraid I've lost both of you. I heard Gulf Harbour Radio, and that was about it. And then there was a big squeak noise. Somebody tuning, maybe. So I'm sorry, but I cannot pick anybody up at the moment. I'll just stand by here for a few minutes to see if a stronger signal comes on. Well, outsider, I've got you. You're way the hell up north somewhere, aren't you? Over? Oh, that's interesting. 5 and 5 of the Solomons. Good lordy. All right. Well, that probably explains why we are not hearing the closer boats. It's very interesting. So, good signal up there in the Solomons. Thank you for that. At least we know something's working. And we will be closing down because there's actually more to interest us here. There's a humongous big crane has arrived next door. So I'm going to go out and look what's going on. Cheers all.